back again one more time with Johnny Styles here for another edition of Inside Out. Johnny, big weekend in bodybuilding. We had a couple of big shows. We got some fresh new news that just popped up today in the way of a big name in bodybuilding, taking things mainstream. And what would a show be without more drama? But we'll get to all that. We're going to kick things off talking about the big event, the MuscleMayhem Pro. Deep lineup of big names, but my man Charles Griffin from Minnesota comes out on top, is on his way to the Olympia. Johnny, Chad Nichols putting on another great event down in Missouri. How'd you see it?
Yes, Chad Nichols. I remember this show quite vividly because the name sounds very fucking metal to me. It's MuscleMayhem sounds very metal to me. And
Mayhem.
Yeah, it's always, I don't know if you got a chance to see the pictures that we saw online from a couple of fans. The lighting was really kind of like a throwback. The lighting itself seemed like it was like from down under, like from down up, and it gave it that old school feel. And I had to go do something else when I came back. Everything that I was hearing was this controversy. There's controversy. It seems like we can't do a show week by week with some type of controversy, right?
Well, yeah, and it's bodybuilding. There's going to be controversy. Literally every single pro show that we have is controversy. Charles Griffin walking away with the win. A lot of people thought Akeem Williams could have been in first place, but people thought that about Toronto. A lot of people really felt that Akeem had edged out Juan Morel. We're going to talk a little bit about this first call out. Here we see Akeem next to Charles Griffin and Max Charles hitting that frontal bicep, but what is actually the final call out? But the first call out here at the MuscleMayhem, you had Charles Griffin, you had Akeem Williams, you had Max Charles, you had Michael Lockett, Rafael Brandau, and then Gerald Williams. So a 6-guy first call out. Definitely a competitive show. There was a handful of big names in the show that we didn't see in the first call out, which just speaks to how deep some of these lineups are becoming. Here we see all the guys up there in that first call out, and definitely a solid first call out. I mean, most of these guys have won shows. We've seen Gerald Williams winning shows, Charles Griffin now winning shows. So this was a good crop of competitors in that first call out. As far as going back to the controversy, when we go pose for pose with this first call out, I think it's really close between Akeem Williams, Max Charles, and between your winner, Charles Griffin. So that's why we saw them pull the top 3 back out at the end. They say shows are won from the back. Here we see Charles Griffin really establishing himself, as far as I'm concerned, as that front runner here with his back lat spread. I'm not crazy. I'll tell you what, I'm not crazy about the way Akeem Williams is hitting that back lat spread. I've seen him do it a few times now with his hands kind of folded on his lower back, and I'm sure he's practiced it a lot. He's got a huge back. I just don't think it's serving him that well. I don't know that with his arms that far back, he can spread his lats out as far as he possibly could. So, again, not necessarily crazy about the way Akeem's hitting that. I'm not sure why he's doing that. It's not something that we see from any other competitors. And generally speaking, I know there's a level of individuality that these guys like to have as far as their posing is concerned, hitting shots a little bit differently. But he's hitting that lat spread completely different than anybody else does. And I think there's a reason guys hit it a certain way, and it's because you can physically spread your lats out further. Here, I think, is where we saw Akeem kind of take a few steps ahead of Charles and Max. In this shot, you just see the density and mass that Akeem's got in his legs. Front to back, his legs are huge. Conditioning, as we talked about in previous shows, in his upper back, a little bit in question. But as far as his legs, his hamstrings, his glutes, his chest, and his arms, Akeem's conditioning is there. So I thought it was a very impressive version of Akeem. Again, he could have been a little bit tighter in his upper back. But as far as where we saw him from his first show earlier on in the year, I thought he looked really good. As far as there being controversy with the win, I don't know, who did you think? You looking at these pictures, first call out, top 3, who did you have winning?
All right, I'm gonna be honest here, and I'm friends with Akeem and I'm friends with Max Charles. I've seen Charles every now and then, But I was in New York for a long time, and I became friends with these guys, and I consider them my friends. When I saw this first call out, at first I saw Max Charles, and from the front, he looked insane. He looked big, he looked hard, he looked freaky. He looked all things Max Charles. If you've ever seen Max Charles in person, you would see a real life superhero body, like super wide. And then I saw Charles Griffin, and he seemed smaller to me. And then I saw Akeem for the first time bringing that even better conditioning than New York, and even better conditioning than weeks prior. And again, at first I thought Max had it. Then they turned from the back, and from the back, it was so weird because from the back, Max really looked really soft to me. From the front, he looked really hard, and then from the back, he looked really, really soft. I'm gonna pull a picture right now, and this is what I mean. The depth perception that Charles has and Akeem. Even though I agree with you, I agree 100%. This lat spread on Akeem has to be something different. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish here, but we all know that it could be better in our opinion. And Akeem had the dice glutes. That pose aside, I think he had it. But this Charles Griffin, man, he is a menace, like in the future of this industry, because he is like a little Ronnie in a way.
Yeah, Charles has made gains by leaps and bounds, and so many times in the IFBB we see guys turn pro, and that's pretty much it as far as progress. Now, when I say that, I'm certainly not trying to discredit anybody's hard work or anything like that, but some guys, their max genetic potential is what it takes to turn pro, if that makes sense. Like everything they have, just completely maxing out their structure as far as their capability of carrying mass, reaching their peak conditioning, that's what it takes for them to win a pro card. Then you get guys who they win their pro card and they've still got miles and miles to go as far as progress in continual growth. And that's what we've seen with Charles Griffin. He turned pro a few years ago. You could tell that he had good structure and a lot of mass. He does need to bring up his quad sweep. So for as powerful as his upper body is in a lot of his poses, and as good as he looks in his back shots, a little bit more quad sweep I think would serve him well and really put him in a position to be winning those big shows. But again, Charles is a guy that just keeps making gains and keeps making gains. And, he was straight out of the gate, he's placing in the top 5. And I think he's really starting to show some of that potential when we saw him turn pro a few years ago. Max Charles, when we use the word potential with Max, we've known that he's had that for a long time. Same with Akeem Williams. With those guys, it's really just a matter of nailing their conditioning. So Akeem, as we said, definitely better from where we saw him earlier on in the year. Definitely positive things for Akeem. He did post on his Instagram. He was a little disappointed with the second place. Hopefully what was joking about going back to powerlifting. Max, we definitely saw Max get better from where he was at earlier on this year as well. He moved up to that third place spot, not where Max wanted to be, but given some of the names in the lineup, it wasn't bad. There we see Max hitting a most muscular, and like you had alluded to earlier, Max is about as wide as he is tall. I actually prefer his hands on hip most muscular because I think that really makes his physique pop. But I thought it was a good showing for Max, a good showing for Akeem, also obviously a good showing for Charles Griffin, who is now on his way to the Olympia. It'll be interesting to see where he falls at the Olympia. His conditioning is going to have to be better, but he's one of those guys where he's not as balanced top to bottom as some of the other guys that we're going to see at the Olympia. So he's going to need to show up like absolutely shredded to get a look at the Olympia. He's not going to be able to be a little bit off. But Charles is a hard worker, and we've seen from the progress that he's made over the last couple of years that the guy's willing to bust his butt. So hopefully he can carry this momentum forward to September in Las Vegas.
I think, in all honesty, I keep going back to this special front lat spread. That if you've seen Max Charles in person and he's this hard and this big and this like. It's almost right out of like a horror movie. Like his triceps, his delts are popping all over the place. And Max Charles is, 100% hardcore in all the essence of the word. should Max Charles take time off, or should he keep going in retrospective of what have we seen from him this year?
Should Max Charles take off or should Max Charles keep going? I absolutely think that Max Charles should keep going. Look, here's a guy who, started off the year not placing where he wanted. He's made pretty significant improvements in his conditioning in a relatively short period of time. Now, we've all seen this from competitors before. They show up, they're not necessarily where they need to be, but when you're a little bit off, a couple of weeks is a lot of time to make improvements. So if we saw Max make the type of improvements he did from his first show to here, it's been leaps and bounds. So we got Chicago coming up. We have Vancouver coming up. So there's other shows coming up in a period of 4 to 5 weeks where if Max just keeps that pedal to the floor, he could really, really peak and come out and get a top spot and qualify for the Olympia with the win. So I say 100% Max Charles keeps going. I would love to see him in Chicago. I would love to see him in Vancouver or maybe even in Tampa. But I say yes, Max should keep going.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, you can only get better. And Max seems like, again, from the front, he seems to have it down. It's if he can get that conditioning from like the same conditioning from the front to the back, I think it's gonna be lights out for a lot of people. So congratulations to Charles Griffin, who has IFBB Pro tattooed on his forearm. Akeem, so close. If you want to go back to powerlifting, please remember that you have a lot of fans in the bodybuilding world that still love you.
He's going to keep
care about you. So think about that as well. We're going to jump over to the Omaha Pro.
Well, you know what? One thing I wanted to touch on.
There are some very interesting competitors. Huh, David?
One thing I wanted to touch on. We're talking over each other. I did want to talk a little bit about the Mayhem and get your opinions on who was up and down. And he's one of my favorite guys in the IFBB. He's got to be up in my top 5 favorite people to follow on social media, period.
Oh, I know who you're going to call.
Our friend Kevin Jordan. And I don't want to not talk about it. Kevin's a guy who should have been in the first call out at this show. We've seen Kevin, be relatively consistent in the IFBB. This is probably as far off as I've ever seen Kevin. I think he tried being a little bit bigger. I know his weight was close to 260. And Kevin's not the tallest guy. So 260, high 250s or whatever is pretty big. So basically all the sentiment I just shared about Max Charles is pretty much my exact same thought for Kevin Jordan. And I know Kevin's pretty critical of himself, but he's a realistic guy. So I was a little bit disappointed. I was hoping after seeing Kevin at his previous shows in California that he'd be able to tighten things up a little bit. But again, Chicago's coming up, Vancouver's coming up, and while his conditioning was off, it wasn't like it was so far off that he doesn't have time to correct it and get back to where he needs to be. Some discussions this weekend, in Omaha with the other IFBB judges about Kevin, and kind of the consensus is conditioning-wise, he's got to get back. And I know we're going back a few years here. I believe it was 2011 when he really just stomped on the scene and won junior nationals. His conditioning was razor sharp. And I know a lot of times we talk about making, a sacrifice for size or conditioning or whatever. But if Kevin can bring the amount of size that he's carrying right now with the kind of conditioning we saw him at his best as an amateur, then Kevin can do very well. And same sentiments as I said, I share with Max. I would like to see Kevin jump into Chicago or Vancouver, or maybe even give himself 6 or 7 weeks and push it for Tampa. I'm not sure what his plans are, but I'm confident that Kevin can bounce back from these last 2 placings and get back up in that top 5 where he belongs.
Absolutely. I think the same thing about Kevin, and we're all friends here, and he's one of the most, the persons that go beyond the sports, the person that can take criticism and can take it, because there are some guys that clearly cannot take it. And this Kevin's in the States and goes people in the whole world. And Kevin, if he brings, we all know, we've seen his pictures almost on the daily basis on Instagram and on Facebook, and we make jokes and this and that and yada yada yada, but we all know that he has a beautiful structure, and if he gets down to the nitty gritty, it's gonna be lights out for a lot of people, and we all know that. But who else? You want to talk about somebody else?
I would have liked to have seen Michael Lockett a little bit harder. Michael Lockett's one of these guys where a little bit harder and Michael Lockett usually don't come into the same sentence. And a fifth place finish for Michael. So still not bad for Michael, top 5 finish, but he really sets the bar for himself. He's got, we've been discussed this so much. He's got kind of a gnarly physique, and I say gnarly in a good way, and that he's got some crazy, crazy conditioning.
Crazy physique, a crazy
but,
physique.
But Michael, he doesn't have the densest back. His legs aren't quite as big as his upper body. But so Michael needs to come in and bring that just like dense, dry, like myostatin muscle that we talk about when it comes to his physique. So we didn't quite see that from Michael. I don't know if he's still doing his 3-4 week preps or whatever he does, but impressive nonetheless. But he just needs to be like just stupid, ugly, gnarly, grainy. And if anybody can do it, it's Michael Lockett. So, there was a couple of guys in that lineup that I had expected maybe a little bit more from, but I'm certainly not going to get down on them too much because I know those guys are capable of really bringing that. So yeah. But anyhow, as you had alluded to earlier before I so hastily cut you off, another big show this weekend that I was emceeing in Omaha. A great event this weekend. I hadn't been to Omaha since I was a kid. I didn't even know what to expect. You fly in, 5-minute Uber from the airport to a beautiful Hilton hotel that's connected to an awesome convention center. We had 4 pro divisions. We had classic physique, women's bodybuilding, and bikini. All very well represented. Now, classic physique, we'll talk about that probably a little bit more than some of the other divisions. Panax Pierre. Now, here's a guy we've seen compete as a bodybuilder for a pretty good handful of years. A really good physique, but always a little slight as far as the muscularity is concerned. I was at the mic stand. With emceeing for amateur shows. Usually we just MC finals. For the professional shows, we'll have an MC at prejudging and finals. And I'm standing at the microphone stand, and these classic guys are getting ready to go up, and Panax was one of the last guys, and I turned and I looked at him, and it was one of those like holy shit moments. I mean, there was a couple of classic physique guys there that I was really, really impressed with. No, you're jumping the gun a little bit here. We're not going to get no, not yet. This is no. Hold on. Don't give him that yet. Don't give him that yet. We got to get to that. But no, and I know we got a picture of Panax we can pull up. But yeah, he looked phenomenal, and it was a really good win for him. A couple other big names there. We had Omar Batista, who's been placing real well, Leishwan Jones. There was a lot of really good classic physique competitors, but Panax Pierre, when I announced his name as a winner, was very emotional on stage, and rightfully so. Here's a guy who's been at it for a long time, and now he's on his way to the Olympia. Some of the other winners that we had there in bikini, we had Marcia Gonçalves. She looked absolutely fantastic. A very good bikini lineup here at the show. So the judges definitely had their work cut out for them here. But Marcia looked phenomenal. Just a really good balance of proportions and conditioning, and she was pretty stunning. We also had women's.
I'm gonna stop you.
He's going to stop me. Okay.
I'm going to stop you right here because we did it last week. We're going to do it here. A lot of people, especially here in down south, around in the Florida section, because she's very popular all over the world, especially in Latin America and stuff. But a lot of people like her, and a lot of girls like her because she can bring it, meaning she can get hard. Last week, we talked about, ex-Miss Olympia, Ashley Kaltwasser, coming in very hard and winning the show. You were there. You saw her in person. Is this the perfect balance, or was she still a little bit too hard in your opinion?
I thought she looked great. I generally speaking, and I know I don't share the same opinions as everybody. I prefer the bikini girls a little bit leaner. And I guess to me, I know there's a line that the judges don't want the girls crossing as far as conditioning. When I look at any athlete in the competitive fitness world, generally speaking, I find physiques a little bit more impressive when there's better conditioning. And I thought she really had that perfect balance. I didn't think she was too lean. I didn't think she was too muscular. I know when you see those delts and those arms, some people think, okay, maybe it's figure, maybe it's too much for bikini. And that's why you have a judging panel. Personally, I prefer the bikini girls to be a little bit leaner. Not that I have anything against the softer look. I think we were both very much in agreement that we wouldn't be upset if there was a wellness division that is also a very good look. But as far as the competitive side is concerned in that division, I do prefer the condition look. So I thought she looked fantastic. It's Stacey McLeod in second place, Natasha Coleman in third, so a very good top three. But on to our women's physique winner. Now, here is somebody who made a fantastic transition from women's bodybuilding into women's physique, Mayla Ash. And I'll tell you what, you're talking about me being there and seeing these people in person. Mayla looked phenomenal. I mean, she just absolutely popped. Everything about her physique. Tiny waist, great conditioning. You can see a great arms delt tie-in, good muscularity in her legs. And she was really, really impressive. And right now in the women's physique, we've talked about apples and oranges at every single show and who's going to really, set themselves apart moving forward into the Olympia. I think Mayla Ash can really do that. So congratulations to her. Your winner from last year, Temnik, an Australian gal, she looked phenomenal, got second place. Valentina Machina, I had fun saying that one on the mic a couple of times. A Russian girl, Valentina Machina, third place, a good finish for her. I'd never even seen her before, certainly hadn't announced her before, but a really good lineup there as well. As far as the women's bodybuilding is concerned, only 8 competitors, but for women's bodybuilding, it was a decent lineup. We saw Isabel Terrell walk away with the win. As you can see in this picture, tiny waist, good quads, a really nice lat spread. She needed to be a little bit tighter. She's one of these girls where her physique is going to carry her, and by her physique, I mean her structure and her muscularity is going to carry her at these smaller shows. But when it comes to the world championships and these bigger shows that has women's bodybuilding, she really needs to step it up as far as her conditioning. And she knows that, and that was something that she had discussed both prior to the show and after. But congratulations to Isabel. Linda Murray was there on behalf of Wings of Strength, which was awesome. So I got to share the stage for about 5 minutes with Linda Murray, which was the highlight of my weekend, being a longtime fan.
Yeah.
But now, Johnny, you teased everybody with these pictures earlier. I pumped the brakes on you a little bit. We had another special thing going on with our men's classic physique competitors, and that was our mustache division. So here's what happened, guys. Apparently, a couple of these classic physique competitors that knew they were going to be in Omaha, kind of talked to each other. They all grew beards out, and then leading into Omaha, they shaved the beards off and had mustaches. There was actually, I think, 2 or 3 more guys who actually decided to shave their mustaches off last minute. But here we had Brian Martinez and Jason Lowe. And, the head judge, Trey Bennett, brought these guys out for a final call out and prejudging. We had a little fun. This was at finals. Your promoter, Jack Titoni. Jack put a poll up on his Instagram story on who wins. And there was like 1,000 people who voted. And I think Jason Lowe, there with your darker hair, I think Jason ended up winning. It was a lot of fun. So we definitely had a good time with it, and it was just a step away from the normal routine of a show to do something that the fans really enjoyed.
I agree, and I was thinking about it, and I think we're gonna touch about it towards the end of the show. But I'm sure you were there. I'm sure that the fans absolutely love this. And
they ate it up, man.
I mean, this is me watching the news, and I don't even know who's winning the show. All I know is there are people talking about the mustaches, the freaking mustache, on Instagram, on Facebook, all over. So it definitely brought some type of hype, not only to a division that resembles what's supposed to be classic, but to the entire sport or hobby we call sport or whatever. Absolutely. In your opinion, you were there. I'll tell you mine first. I think the guy with the darker hair, he had a better tanning too. He looked very familiar at tanning, and he had that look. I mean, you put that picture in black and white, and he could totally pass off as 1972. In your opinion, who did you like better, Brian or Jason?
Oh, you want to? So who wins the mustache division? Well, this is as an analyst, these were apples and oranges mustaches. You saw Jason there, very reminiscent of the 70s or 80s, the full head of hair, a very full-bodied mustache. Now, Brian's mustache, you can't really necessarily see. There you go. He curled it up a little on the end. So Brian had a very like early 1900s-esque mustache, a little bit more of an angle. If I have to pick a mustache here, though, as the winner, I'm going with Jason Lowe, that full-bodied mustache mixed with the hair. And you're spot on. You turn this into a black and white picture, and you don't know if this picture is from 2018 or 1978, or it could be from 1984. Give him a red Hawaiian shirt and you call him Magnum PI. So no, it was a lot of fun, but I'm going with Jason. But again, guys, this is, we see the shows and we all know the format, this division, posing routines, awards. So to go off script a little bit and have a little bit of fun, and I'm telling you, you hit the nail on the head, man. The fans ate it up. Pictures were getting shared all over social media. So a little bit of a change from the norm of what we see for bodybuilding shows. It was a lot of fun for me being the MC at that show and being able to be part of that. So we had a blast in Omaha. So an awesome weekend there in Nebraska, and I'm already looking forward to next year. So
yeah, very cool, very cool. If you ever get a chance to see David, call the shots in the show instead of Bob, it's a very different vibe. It's a very different show. But there's some news in the industry, and it's a different type of news because it kind of came out of left field.
Absolutely.
I'm still on Twitter at Johnny_Styles, and I still see some blabber. Believe it or not, people still use Twitter. It's not only Donald Trump, but I saw this commotion about all these athletes switching from supplement companies. Do you care? Do you not care? And I didn't even know this, but yes, the Mr. Olympia from the 212 division, the reigning champ Flex Lewis, is now signed with Monster Energy drink. I'm not going to put anything on screen right now. I'm going to let David get his first thoughts because I really don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I tell you what, it was awesome news. And Flex is one of the guys that I talk to on a little bit more regular basis than some of the other guys in the industry. And he kept this pretty hush-hush. And, one of the things you never want to do, not just in bodybuilding, but in pretty much any aspect of your life, you never want to overpromise and underdeliver. And anybody who's been around this sport long enough knows that, companies will talk to you about this, and they'll talk to you about this, or we should do this. And everybody throws around big ideas, and sometimes they fall through. And so, with something this big, you really don't want to let anything out until it goes through, because otherwise, I guess you could say people get their hopes up and things like that. So I'm at my new job. I'm in my variable annuities training course, and we get to take a little bit of break in the morning. And I go to Instagram, of course, because that's what I do. And I see it right there. Flex Lewis signs with Monster Energy, and I couldn't be more happy for the guy and proud. I'm older than him, so I think I can say proud. Flex is really the first guy, and as long as I can recall, as far as modern bodybuilding, that has kind of stepped out into the mainstream as far as sponsorships and endorsements. And it doesn't get any more mainstream than Monster Energy. We're used to seeing these guys sponsor your motocross events, extreme sports, the X Games. Obviously, a huge company, and for a bodybuilder to have signed a contract with a company like Monster is phenomenal. Now, I don't know the details of the contract. I don't know what it all is going to entail as far as how they promote Flex or bodybuilding or anything like that. But the fact that he is just with them, yeah, and it looks, as you can see, Monster's Instagram, it's all extreme sports, it's all this. So the fact that they've kind of, shifted over into bodybuilding is awesome. Now, I know Monster does their protein shakes, they do their supplements. Again, Flex is with Yamamoto, so I don't know necessarily how that's all going to work. But again, a huge congratulations is in order for Flex Lewis. And, we always talk about, how does bodybuilding go mainstream? And when is somebody going to, break into, these big markets? And is somebody ever going to get a Nike or an Under Armour contract or whatever? And, it's not a shoe deal quite yet for Flex as far as the big companies. But I tell you what, man, as far as bodybuilders and endorsements, it doesn't get any bigger than this. So congratulations to Flex. And it's no surprise, if somebody's going to get a good endorsement and going to be a good ambassador for the sport and be somebody that is not only a good guy but has a great personality and can really draw in fans, it's Flex Lewis. So congratulations to Flex Lewis, and I am excited to see where this goes. I did text him after I saw it. Congratulations. He said it's been in the works for a while. So this definitely isn't something that just popped up recently. He's been talking to him for over a year, it sounded like. So big things for Flex moving forward, and maybe it can usher in opportunities for a few other guys. If these companies see that, hey, these bodybuilders they draw a fan base and they've they drove up some interest. I don't know. Maybe it's one of these things where Flex just opened the doors for a couple other athletes, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, at first I didn't know what really to make of it, and then as I kept thinking about it, pretty much your whole line of thought kind of went through my head. I think it's great. I think Flex knows how to talk. He knows how to present himself. He knows how to reach people in the expos. And hey, we talked about something, but bodybuilding is still, in my opinion, bodybuilding is still an extreme sport. So if you're going to take it, for that route, I think bodybuilding is still an extreme sport. And
yeah, of course.
Who wants to look normal in our industry? So congrats to Flex. And
absolutely.
Oh, wait, hold on. Tell me.
I was just gonna say, it's like, I'm picturing like, okay, how is Monster gonna use a bodybuilder in their endorsements and their advertisements and their promotions? And you hit the nail on the head. Now I know a lot of guys are, extreme sports, all bodybuilders do is put on thongs and flex. Extreme in that it's just guys really pushing the envelope, and obviously this is a very loose connection with some of the X Games and sports like that, but you could just see them doing some real edgy, a lot of videos or whatever promotions of flex and competition shape. And really, again, Monster and all these energy drinks, the reason why they sponsor these X Games and the extreme sports, it's just about pushing the envelope in general. And obviously bodybuilders, that's what we do. We push the envelope as far as what the human body is capable of. And so I think they could definitely, I kind of got it in my head, what would an energy drink, do with a pro bodybuilder? But there's definitely some cool stuff that could happen. So obviously great news for bodybuilding, even better news just for Flex Lewis in particular. On a little bit on the flip side of that, we're talking about all this good news and good exposure for bodybuilding, and some other stuff going on that I'm still a little bit, out on as far as whether I think it's good or not. And that's some trash talking that's been going on. Now, leading into the New York Pro, we saw a lot of guys having some fun. Juan Morel having some fun with Nathan Dash and Justin Rodriguez. We saw stuff go a little sideways with Sergio and Steve Kukla over the Make America Great Again shirts. And now this latest thing is Dwayne Quamina, a 212 guy who just gets massive in the off season, and when he dials it in, looks really impressive. He's calling out Lunsford now, and I don't know. It's so hard to tell what's just hype or who's really talking trash. And I think he might have taken it down already. No, if you scroll down a little bit further, you can see right there. No, not this one. If you go back. To his main page, go back one spot, Johnny. You can see where, scroll down just a little bit. Over there, you can see that picture of Derek Lunsford right there with the arrow pointing to his quads from Junior Nationals. I know Derek had some people commenting that they thought he had some funky stuff in his quads. And he was like, well, you better get rid of that before the Olympia. It's like, Dwayne, dude, this picture's like 2 or 3 years old. Like, what the hell are you even talking about? So, on one hand, I want to be like, okay, it's some trash talking, it's good excitement. On the other hand, Derek Lunsford obviously has already established himself as being one of the top guys in the world. So I don't know if maybe Dwayne's trying to ride off of Derek's popularity and create some controversy that wouldn't otherwise be there to get his name out there, whether he really has beef. Here we see Derek Lunsford post his transformation picture. 75 pounds, I think it said, in 3 years. So, Dwayne's got some pretty big shoes to fill if he's going to try to chase after Derek. I don't even know if that's the word I want to use, or term I want to use, shoes to fill. But anyhow, I don't know. Like I said, I think there's some things as far as good, fun natured comments about guys being fat or not being in shape. But when you start pointing out spots where he thinks the injection's gone wrong and stuff like that, I think that's taken it a little too far. We did see Sergio call out Justin Rodriguez too, making fun of his legs and posting pictures of babies and stuff. And Sergio seemed like he took it a little bit more lighthearted. But I don't know, Johnny. Where do you think the line is? Where do these guys draw the line between having fun and talking a little bit of trash and really just attacking other people's personalities and character? Where do we draw the line?
I don't know. I've been preaching about it for years. I think this is what, in a way, bodybuilding needs. It needs to have the perfect combination of, taking itself a little bit not too serious, but at the same time a little bit serious, because sometimes, and I'll bring up the New York Pro. It started as a joke between Justin and Juan and Sergio and all these guys, and and Nathan, which Nathan played a big part in the New York Pro.
You sure
and
did.
As the weeks started getting closer to the show, I could tell you firsthand that I was there. There was New Yorkers that haven't been to the New York Pro in years that just went in there because of the hype that these guys have had some type of animosity. I can't tell you how many people decided to go to do the show at the very last minute because Sergio went nuts and he messed with everybody's minds and, started trash talking this and that and started posting pictures that obviously was not real. It was just him just playing a joke on these guys. But the excitement, Kevin Jordan is another guy that's not afraid to, throw some words around.
Sure.
Especially you and I have been in the Mr. Olympia's press conference. And I've heard a lot of fans that, they like it. Some fans say it's not, really that hyped up. It could be better. But we all know what goes on behind the scenes. We all know that these guys are tired. These guys have a lot on their minds and stuff. But it's one of those things. Like Cedric, it comes to mind. I remember a couple of years ago, William Bonac went nuts, and it's felt really real. It felt like somebody called him out, and he was talking about his girlfriend. He was talking about
I remember that very
wife,
clearly.
his family, and it felt real. And for once, and look at Bonac now. He's right there. So it's got to be a happy ending. I guess. It takes some type of promoter probably to help these guys establish some type of storyline to express to people like, I want to beat you. We're talking about Lunsford here. I will tell you straight up, since I've seen this kid, I don't know if he's young, he's good looking, all that. Ever since this kid popped up, all I see is everybody else hating on him. All these other guys, he's this, he's that. I've heard it all. I'm in the press pit. I hear it all, and I don't know why they hate on the kid. I know he's working now here. Maybe I can get a video from him. He's in MI40 with Ben Pekulski. He's gotten a lot of hate. I don't even know why, but I think the line must be dropped if you go like really, really personal with family and friends and girlfriends and moms and children. I think you can do much more and be much more creative if you decide to do something different. If you decide to attack the body part of somebody. You don't have to say anything about injections or oils. Maybe you can say, you have no legs, or I beat you at this show. You didn't beat me at this show. Blah 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 blah. There's a ton of million ways. Now Sergio talks a big game, and that's who he is. That's the real Sergio Oliva Jr. right there. And people love him and hate him for it. But I assure you, more people love him for it.
Yeah, and Johnny, we're going to wrap this show up here in a minute, but I kind of wanted to give my final take on this whole drama and bodybuilding thing. I've been to the last 5 Olympias, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And the most hyped I've seen any of them was in 14, where Kai and Phil were just at each other's throat. And, sometimes it got played off as being good natured. When you talk to George and you talk to Hani, trust me, there was no love lost between those two. And the fans ate it up. So like you said, short of calling people out with their family or overly personal things, I think the more confrontations we have, the more drama, it's going to play out better for the fans and for the sport. We see it in MMA. Guys talk a lot of trash leading into it. In bodybuilding, what do we get with interviews? Well, I'm going to bring my best package, and I'm going to be 10 pounds heavier and 2% leaner, and I feel like I really put all my work in. It's boring. It's boring. And at the end of the day, these guys talking a little bit of trash, as long as it doesn't get too personal, I think is great for the sport. We need some hype. We need people getting fired up. We need these competitors. We need the fans really getting into it. And a little bit of good-natured trash talk, even if it's pushing it a little bit far, I think is okay. Like I said, don't bring in people's families, girlfriends, kids, whatever. But short of that, have a little bit of fun. Talk a little bit of trash. It'll be good for the fans. It'll be good for the sport. And at the end of the day, it'll get people fired up.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we talked about when we came over with this show, it's like, we see things literally from the inside out, because not only we see it as fans and people guys who like grew up with these people, but we kind of have evolved into seeing the sport all together, and we want it to be great. We really mean it. We want bodybuilding to be great again, with no pun intended, or we don't want any drama with Steve.
You better be careful with that one, Steve. But Steve and Sergio are going to come after us.
That's one thing that we are pushing with the show. We are pushing for bodybuilding to not be boring, to be something a little extra that the average girl or the average guy can look at it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Did you see what this guy told him, this and that? Hey, the second show we had in this station, in this network, the AFS Network, was Nathan calling out Phil with no shame, with no fear, and you won't believe how many people loved it. So,
absolutely.
Take home message here is, let's make the sport a little bit less boring, I guess, and we'll get more out of it, and we'll get more fans.
All right. Well, tell you what, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Inside Out with David Baye and my man, Johnny Styles. We're going to have some videos up on Facebook, on Instagram. Make sure you're commenting. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, your feedback. And, if you want to throw a little bit of trash talk at Johnny and I, we can handle it too. But be ready for us to throw it back. But that's going to do it, guys. We will catch up with you next time. Have a good one.